Welcome to the Page One Podcast, a twice-weekly podcast featuring a variety of guests and thought leaders on topics ranging from channel strategies to tariffs, influencer marketing, best-in-class product launches, and all the details about how to accelerate your e-commerce sales with the big box retailers, or what we call R-commerce. Now here's your host, Luke Peters.
Thanks for joining me on the Page One Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Peters. This is the podcast where I bring you the best and brightest leaders to share consumer product sales and marketing strategies that will help you grow your business. I'm the CEO and founder of Newer Appliances, where I cut my teeth selling products online. I've now started Retail Band, where I hope to help other brands succeed in product launches, influencer marketing, B2B sales strategy, and a whole lot of other marketing strategies that we can help product companies implement. Right now, I am offering a free evaluation of your online sales strategy. So if you're interested, find me on LinkedIn or email me at luke@retailband.com. So thanks again for joining us. Today, we have Ken Kline on the podcast. And Ken is a founding partner of VHC Brand, and Ken graduated from Pepperdine University. He's an experienced textile importer, married with 3 kids, a dog and a cat, I think, does all the cooking. And thanks, Ken, for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's awesome to be here. Thank you.
Cool. Did I miss anything there in the intro?
No, that's pretty expansive. Thank you.
And Ken, would you mind sharing, where are you calling from?
I am calling from the big town of Branson, Missouri.
Awesome. And you went to Pepperdine. So talk about a little culture shock, right?
You nailed it. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely different moving to a town of less than 12,000 from a city of 14 million. And none of us are from Missouri. That's the funny part.
Oh, wow.
My parents moved here, and then they called me up. They're like, hey, you want to move here and found a textile business with us, which they had never run before, and neither had I. And so, it's kind of a strange thing. That was 25 years ago. So typical story like yourself, founded it on the kitchen counter and started shipping UPS out of the garage and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I know we got a great conversation ahead of us. And just a teaser for the audience, Ken, later on, we'll talk about a really unique story about how Ken has rebuilt his business after a total loss from a fire. So I'm definitely interested in learning more about how you overcame that challenge. And also, just to give everybody just a little bit of perspective in case they didn't know where Pepperdine University is. It's right on the coast, right? Right is it in Malibu, Ken? I think it's. Yeah,
it overlooks the ocean. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, but but like a lot of others, you're fleeing California for, all the. Yeah, it's funny.
A little earlier than the big tidal wave, but I lived out there 7 years. That's kind of the 7-year itch when you live in a big town like LA, kind of a thing.
Yep. Cool. Well, thanks again for joining. And I guess, why don't we kick it off, Ken, by, before we get into the business, why don't we kind of talk about your early years? Why, right now, obviously you're an entrepreneur, business owner, but, what was it in your early years and upbringing that kind of gave you that mindset?
Yeah, it's kind of strange. It's totally a non sequitur. My dad was a Fortune 500 executive for an oil and gas business in the Deep South. So I actually grew up in the Deep South, and my dad was a corporate man, and he went all the way from the tax department all the way to reporting to the chairman of the board, who was extremely wealthy, multi-billionaire. So I grew up around a corporate environment that was very definitely suit, tie, new shoes for the board meeting, that kind of a deal, in a very genteel kind of environment, but with a hardcore work ethic. And then I was an English major with no real plan, to be honest with you. So I got out of college and started working PR, and I got into financial PR, which is a much bigger deal now than it used to be, like press releases and 10K statements and things like that for a financial shop out in LA. And it was good, but it was a grind, but I was using my kind of skill set. And my parents retired early and said they had this very strange idea to buy textiles that were kind of on liquidation and then resell them. And then they had this other very bizarre idea to move to Branson, Missouri from the Deep South as kind of to start over for their retirement. And then they kind of kicked that around and did that. And then I was living in LA, and then it was one of those LA things. And I love LA, by the way, but so I wake up and go to work, right? And I hear this noise, and I go outside, and my car just got stolen out of my driveway.
Oh, wow. Ouch.
Yeah. So and this is in West LA, just, Beverly Glen, kind of nice area.
Yeah.
So I called the police immediately, and the lady said, "We don't chase stuff like that down. Was there a homicide? Are you hurt?" I said, "No, my car's gone." She goes, "Oh, that's not anything. We're not looking for that." And so my dad had planted the seed 6 months earlier. "Hey, son, if you get sick of LA, let's try this." So I called him and I said, "Hey, I think I'm done."
That was it. That's all you needed to hear.
Well, yeah, that was among other things. I mean, a 45-minute commute one way and I don't know, whatever, all that, just all the stuff. But I mean, it was one of those deals. But yeah, so from there, you move to the middle of nowhere and you think it's totally pristine in the Missouri Ozarks. I mean, it's very, very gorgeous. We have clear running rivers and streams. We have clear lakes. I mean, it is gorgeous, but literally, you can hear crickets, I mean, nothing here. So, yeah, that's the story. And it's kind of a weird deal. You just kind of have to have the tenacity to say, well, let's try this out, which I know doesn't even make any sense, but it was better than the grind I was in, kind of a deal. And kind of the agreement was, if this doesn't work out, we'll fold the business up and just move back to LA and keep doing the financial PR work that you were doing, and just kind of go figure out your life, kind of a deal. But we made it work, and we kind of figured out how to monetize it kind of, pretty quickly. And we had enough swagger and naivety to start talking. What happened was we started talking to retailers that were canceling big orders on wholesalers, and then the wholesaler would panic. So we quickly figured out that there was some arbitrage there to pick up goods and then figure out how to resell them. So that was kind of the initial kind of, granted, very bizarre idea in textiles, but that's what we started with.
Cool. And thanks for getting us there. And now back in present day, why don't we, quickly dive in, and just so the audience kind of understands the business. So we're talking textiles, but, kind of quickly, can you, give us a visualization or share so the audience understands what type of products we're talking about?
Yeah. So sorry. So that's a lot of top of bed. So soft goods, bed sets, shams, euros, pillows, a lot of bedding, covers, a lot of bed skirts. And then, so we just sell a lot of that category that's now all private label. It's all our brand that we design and import from India, and a little bit from China, but mostly India. And then we do a lot of window treatment that coordinates or matches, which in traditional decor is kind of a big deal. So a lot of people like to dress out their master bedroom with coordinating bedding, coordinating window, coordinating bathroom, that kind of thought. And then we also do a good bit of rugs that coordinate, but they're not necessarily matchy-matchy, they're more coordinates. So those are kind of the categories we do. It's all soft goods. So it's not like mattresses or anything like that.
Okay, perfect. And then moving on down the list, how about the total number of employees and say warehouse size, so we can get an idea of the company footprint?
Yeah, so I had to go ask my accounting director today. I said, "How many employees do we have on staff now?"
Yeah.
We did a major restructuring this year, so it's 66 employees, of which I think 3 or 4 or maybe 5 are part-time, so about 60. Now, about 14 of those full-time are based in Delhi, India, though, so they're not all here at corporate or a fulfillment center or whatever.
Oh, okay, cool. That's awesome. So you guys have a global footprint there.
Yeah.
And then how about warehouse size?
Yeah, so the warehouse, we have 2 fulfillment centers, so the total is 50,000 square feet. We're at 49,800, somewhere in there.
Yep. And both of those centers are local, or those are 3PLs elsewhere?
Yeah, so they're local. So we post-fire, we segregated our offices from our fulfillment center. So they're like 20 minutes apart now. And then we also started implementing, we can talk about it later, but we also this year started implementing like the Wayfair Castlegate option and some things like that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we're doing the same thing. We can talk about that maybe a little bit later on. Great. And how about if you could quickly go through just approximate, and I don't put you on the spot, but just approximately, just so we understand, the basic departments that you have there at the company. I'm assuming it's going to be, the typical, finance and marketing and sales, but I'm always curious because some people might have outsourced some of those disciplines. So, are you guys operating all of those departments, or are there certain areas that you guys outsource and certain core competencies that you keep in-house?
Yeah. So as it's changed over the past 5 years, so we have an internal and external sales team, but they're all corporate sales. So they're all based with commission or base or whatever. So the sales team is like that. We used to have outside rep groups, and we sort of switched that up. Then we have a creative and product development team that basically works daily back and forth between the India office and the U.S. office. So we actually do a lot of our CAD work and a lot of the grunt work we do in India with a team over there. And then we do a lot of like lead work and thought process kind of over here. And then we do QA back in India and things like that, and production and everything. So that's kind of one end-to-end process though, from like conception to launch, which is like a 9 months to 15-month window, depending on the product.
Wow.
Then we do, yeah. And then we have developed a content team, which is kind of content / onboarding / implementations, which is obviously when we talk about content, we're talking about e-commerce content. So we've tried agencies and we've tried third parties for like bulk photography output and things like that, but it just really worked better to bring that all in house and really curate it and really take control,
Yep.
So that whole process is all in house now. And then accounting and finance, that's all, and executive is all obviously in house. So that's kind of how we do it. But like as we grow, we're looking at adding some niche expertise, kind of depending on the program. But that's how we're set up.
That's great. And is the content team like part of a marketing team, or is it more just outside of that?
Yeah. So there's content creation, and then there's some SEO practice, and then there's some classic marketing, ad work, and things like that. But yeah, that's all under one umbrella as far as how we're operating.
Cool. Well, that'll lead me into some other questions. Thanks for that. I mean, it's always interesting because, as I listen, it sounds like a company like yours has to be really good in product development. And obviously you have a team there that does that, and a team here and a team in Delhi. And then, but what could differentiate you, honestly, just from a lot of folks I've talked to, but is that you guys are really focused on e-com and content. And I already heard you, throw out SEO and PPC. And so you're thinking about that, which is great because a lot of brands, are only kind of relying on, the Wayfarers of the world and their brick and mortars to do the selling. But it sounds like you guys are kind of building those competencies in-house, so you guys can, be, own your brand and being, have some more control over the destiny of the brand, basically.
Yeah. Now, I mean, that's correct. That's how we look at it. And in a nutshell, basically, Wayfair is a perfect example where we saw, tremendous opportunity, but at the same time is like an opportunity to occupy some shelf space and to have first mover advantage in some cases. There's also a tremendous responsibility, as you would know, to then own up to and grow up to actually outputting that volume of content and be consistent. And so while there's opportunity in e-com versus like maybe you can't quite get into a mass retailer because they have their favorites, or the buyer works a certain way, or they don't like how you operate, or whatever. There's all these kind of reasons. Those opportunities are very different in e-com, but then the responsibility is very different in e-com, where you do have to create your content versus just basically, we used to just deliver. Once we got a container to their DC as a mass retailer, we were like, that project's done.
Yeah.
And it's no way like that in e-com. Totally different. So yeah, we really try to focus a lot on that. Like I said, we do a good job for who we are. We still feel like we make mud pies, but I think everyone does.
Yeah, well, you're the business owner perfectionist, so everybody can see their flaws. But I'll tell you what, you're moving the right direction. It's in hearing that you started from the other mindset is even more impressive, because it really is hard to go from that big box in store team, because that what happens is when companies start that way, they build their whole team and culture is built around it, and then transition to digital mindset is a big change.
Yeah, and we did have to do some change management around that very issue. We really did, and there's a lot of bias in the industry. Wholesale is kind of an old man's business, so to speak, and then textile is like an old man's business. So it's like funny. It definitely, it's tough. Especially when your biggest buyers 5 years ago were telling you, nah, that's not true.
Yeah. Well, how things have changed. So,
yeah.
Okay, Ken, so you are 30% niche retail. You were 70%, which is really interesting. And then go ahead and fill in the rest of the blanks there. Where are the rest of the sales coming from?
Yeah. So we switched to a heavy e-com focus, as a kind of a way to make up for the kind of industry bias against smaller companies like ours, sort of up against bigger textile vendors that have been at a mass retailer for maybe a long time and has a long relationship. So we saw the e-com play as a way to get deeper into some mass retailers as kind of first mover advantage as a niche player. So using the word niche for us and niche for the Main Street retailer. Sorry about that. So like the idea of that was like, we see some great opportunity where a lot of industry players maybe not trying to gear around it, or maybe they're not thinking that because the current volume is with traditional retail. And we did have a good traditional retail. We did have mass retail, traditional mass retail as well, but kind of trying to just figure our way around, well, what's the biggest opportunity with not limited shelf space. So once we started figuring that out with the Wayfarers and some of the other players, then we said this really needs to be a big focus for us. So yeah, so that's kind of how we made that switch. And we started that about 6.5, 7 years ago. And then we really started taking it really, really, really seriously about 5 years ago. And then we had, the fire 3 years ago. So we kind of walked through that. But so as far as like the breakdown of the channels, indirectly, I think I would have to say Amazon is our biggest channel, but we do a good bit of volume in private label that is private label exclusive for companies that have natively grown up on Amazon. So that's been an interesting business. So I would have to say that a lot of our product ends up on Amazon, but not under our label and not just randomly.
Oh, wow.
But
okay.
So it's a pretty cool model because, Amazon, there's plenty of shelf space. And there's very sophisticated players that know how to work that world and ecosystem. So that's been a pretty neat kind of adventure for us to help people kind of launch brands. And then we're not the expert on Amazon, but we're the expert on the textile product concept to launch kind of side of it,
Yeah.
So that's kind of now more recently, we've started working directly with Amazon on some stuff that really is a better fit for like bulk volume every day, kind of the Amazon model versus kind of a lot of our premium goods. It's not necessarily the best channel for, that. And then kind of, I don't want to talk about Amazon the whole hour though, because we have great relationships with others. So we actually have a longer relationship and do more volume with Wayfair. And that's a function of the Wayfair model keeps growing. It's a function of us trying to hand in glove fit, just trying to really make sense of that ecosystem. And then the other thing is on Wayfair, we touch multiple categories. So we kind of became interesting to them very early from the standpoint that here's a vendor that offers top of bed, that also offers matching window treatment, that also has coordinating rugs. And that whole thought was kind of unique versus like one Instapot, and it comes in one color black. Now, there's disadvantages to that, but that's kind of, so from there, it goes down to, we do Overstock quite a bit, and they're a great partner. We added Home Depot this year, been kind of a beta test that's pretty successful though all around. And then it kind of goes down to from there. Now we don't do Walmart. We exited Walmart this year, and we also exited JCPenney, which was a pretty big gut call on my part. Just seeing the way some of the legacy retailers are going with their traditional business versus their online business, and who's going to get caught in the crossfire. So,
well, that's a big set of companies that you're working for or working with. And I figured Wayfair would be a perfect company that's suited around your product, obviously. And they do, quickly, do you guys do private label with Wayfair? I know they have like a ton of great brands that they have on the back end that they label with.
No, we did do a pretty big program a couple of years ago with Birch Lane, but it was kind of it's not, they do white label and then there's private label. So it's like, we did white label. We did kind of custom specific programs for Birch Lane that they white labeled, but they weren't custom for Wayfair, kind of a deal.
Yeah. So now you're back to just focusing on your brand. It sounds like how big is the Amazon business as a percentage of your total company? I guess adding in total that you sell to Amazon and that other parties are selling.
I would say. I looked at the figures today. It's probably 22-25% of total volume.
Okay, so you're about 30% to the niche retails, 20 or 25% to Amazon, and then probably a good chunk to Wayfair, and then the bulk is kind of some of the smaller companies that we talked about. And I'm sure if your Home Depot business is new, that one will be a growing component. I'm sure you'll see some of that in 2020. So that's it's always fun to kind of go through the breakdown, because everybody, I think it's tangible. And, our audience is, comprised mostly of other business owners, and, we all like to hear numbers. So thanks for sharing those, Ken. I appreciate that.
Yeah, totally.
It just gives context and people can understand who the customers are. And I guess I wanted to, this is again, it's kind of in the weeds a little bit, but just curious, in case you're on anything different or interesting on the ERP side, are you able to share what backend you're on? Because you're having to run 2 separate warehouses, it sounds like, that are remote. So what's the backend system that you're using? How does it connect the different warehouses and your main HQ? And how do you handle that with the EDI?
Yeah, so we're on NetSuite, which actually is a pretty strong backbone.
Yeah, we're on it too.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a whole conversation we could have about the pros and cons. It has so many bells and whistles, of which a lot we don't use, but then it's got a lot of good backbone and connectivity that you're very familiar with. So we're on NetSuite, and so we do that, and then that's easy. I would say it's really seamless with the EDI component, and then API, which we're converting a lot of our clients to API. Which is we've been developing that in-house, which is actually pretty cool because those legacy costs with EDI transactions, kind of go away. So it's nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's everybody's dream actually, is to get off EDI. It's hard to for a lot of these retailers, but do you have an EDI expert at the company, or how you, because it sounds like in the States you're a team of about 50, so solid size team, actually about the same size as number of people as my company, as far as New Air. And we have a great dedicated EDI person who she's lights out on handling the NetSuite EDI connections, and along with a bunch of just all the whole part of the NetSuite integration. How about on your team? Do you guys have somebody that is responsible for that end of it?
Yes, we do. We have 2 point people that are really, really just brain surgeons. And, it's like they just do a fantastic job, in my opinion. And not only that, they love it. And that's always cool when someone really likes that kind of work.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have 2 people that are really, really good at it. And that's worked out really well for us. And that is a unique skill set that we kind of had to develop in-house. And then you kind of have to free them up from everything else. You can't let them be in 18 projects when they're in that.
Yeah,
it's kind of that deal. So yeah, that's what we do. And then we have some third-party integration, like some third-party heavy lifting, but pretty much we've done everything in-house, which I have to tip my hat to them. They've done a great job. So
that's great. And then, moving on to your supply chain, you obviously stated you guys are, almost 100%, it sounds like, in India. So you are not having to pay tariffs. I don't even know if tariffs are hitting textiles in China, but they're definitely hitting appliances and electronics, and we're getting nailed by them, but you'll know more about that. Has that been a big advantage? It sounds like you got a team there. It's got to be a strategic advantage of your company to be sourcing from India. And maybe you can talk a little bit about that, and also where other textiles are also being sourced. I think, Vietnam might be another location. It'd just be interesting, your thoughts on that.
Yeah, sure. So we are almost exclusively India now. We opened an office there 14 years ago, which was kind of a moonshot, to be honest with you. I had started working out of India in the mid-'90s and late '90s, really like 1997. And I think my first trip was like 1998 or 99. I'm trying to remember, maybe 98. At the time, it was like, you could see China was growing rapidly and industrializing rapidly, and India still was like way behind in the 90s. I mean, it was very interesting. But with the advantage that they have an ecosystem for textiles and home decor that is based on a 200-year plus interaction with Europe, and specifically the UK and England. So they have a very finely tuned sense of, they understand what a Ralph Lauren buyer is looking for, and they understand what a Pottery Barn buyer is looking for, and they work very well with that type of buyer. And so for us, the play was, we can do volume out of China, but we can layer in premium goods, what we call premium goods, out of India. So that was kind of the impetus of the thought there. And then we kind of completely switched after the Great Recession, and we made some other strategic decisions to say, well, while we do great volume out of China, it's very thin margins given that the commoditization of the product. So how can we sort of create a Pottery Barn of wholesale in textiles that we can be really proud of? That, yes, the wholesale is 3 to 5 times higher in a lot of cases, but we're extremely happy with the quality and the heirloom kind of premium level we're trying to put out there. So that was but we did both for a while, which was a little bit schizophrenic from a branding standpoint. Yeah, so I mean, that's kind of the idea there. And what put us in the business was, again, I started as arbitrage, buying from a textile importer out of Texas that had scaled very rapidly with premium brands in the United States, like LL Bean, Ralph Lauren, Garnet Hill, some really premium like home decor brands that are a little bit more legacy now that we're getting into the e-com era, but still, well-known brands. Well, these guys were building a phenomenal business, and the owner was spending every penny plus extra. So we started buying their liquidation. Then they kind of went into a total tailspin. So we made a big gut call in like 99 or 2000. I think it was 2000, where they were going bankrupt, and we stepped into the ecosystem and said, okay, we'll buy. You've got 20 containers lined up that are for different buyers. We'll come in and soak those up. We will make sure our factories in India that they're also supplying us are not going to go bankrupt because they're getting stuck with, all these containers. And we're going to buy them for 30 cents and 50 cents on the dollar, which is kind of a black eye for the vendor, but it preserves the ecosystem, which I know is Luke, that's a very bizarre thought process.
Yeah. But that worked for you guys. That's a good story.
Yeah. And it put us in the business kind of in volume, kind of almost like in a year, Yeah,
it's a big risk too, that you took on a huge risk. And just because you're buying it, 30 to 50 cents on the dollar, you still got to turn around and sell that. And
absolutely.
So it's a big, and that's a huge volume too. I mean, that's a ton of cash. You must have had, either you guys had a ton of cash or you got some really good terms on that deal, right? If you're buying that many containers.
Yeah. Well, I told you my dad was a retired Fortune 500 executive.
Okay. That's always good to have.
But I will tell you too, that was the last time he wrote a big check. And then he told me, son, I'm not going to finance it like this anymore. We're going to go get a bank account. I mean, we're going to go get, a big line of credit.
Yep.
Because he was just messing around. He was like, whatever. But then after that, which was like $300,000, $400,000 check or more, he said, I'm not doing that again. So it's funny because recently we're back with the banker that was my first banker 25 years ago when he was just a junior officer. Now he's a CEO of a publicly traded bank here in Missouri.
Wow.
Yeah, he told me like he met with me 3 weeks ago just to talk about whatever. He goes, I'm telling you something I've never told you, Ken. First time I met your dad, he scared the crap out of me. That's hilarious. Anyway,
it's funny how. So, talking through that, and tell me more about the brand, because I'm wondering how many total SKUs do you guys have? I want to kind of understand the different, not in detail, but let's start with that question. How many total SKUs? And I got a couple follow-ups to that.
Yeah, and the SKU story is an odyssey because we had a high of like 6,000 SKUs, and frankly, the idea behind Textiles was more. And we were like, well, let's do this, let's do that, let's launch Christmas, let's add Thanksgiving and harvest and seasonal, and let's add tablecloths and window treatment. So but then we kind of hit a big sobriety check, so to speak, when we started doing a big pivot into e-com and then all the content management. So
yeah, that's what I wanted to ask about. And like review management, how do you even build reviews and build rankings when you have 6,000 different SKUs and one pillowcase from the next or bed sheet from the next? That's got to be difficult.
Yeah, difficult is a polite word. So like that's what we decided was like, this is too much. That old business model, while it's fun to keep iterating and be known for that, it's way too much bandwidth to cover. Now that we not only have to import and design and stock out the product, now we're also drop shipping it, which means our inventory has to be a lot higher because it's not a container going out the door.
Yeah.
And then secondly, we're also responsible to now create the content, which we used to ship the container to Dillard's or whoever, and they would take their own pictures and write their own content, or whatever. So we're definitely going through this phase. We're like year 2.5 into like, let's reduce that by a good 50%, So our target is to be less than 3,000 SKUs by the end of 2020 to address exactly the issue you pointed out from like the 10,000 foot view, which is that how do you manage content, photography, reviews, and ad spend? I mean, it gets to the point where you can't unless someone writes you like a $20 million check or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. We all want one of those.
Yeah, that would be nice.
That would be nice.
No one offered that this week, so
so you got to go with strategy B instead of strategy A.
Yeah.
It's still, that's still a heck of a lot of SKUs. You're trying to get down to 3,000.
Yeah.
And so, that's a massive catalog. And I could just see it's not only just the work of I know there's a lot of work involved, but then you invest in a SKU or a design, some design that's taking your product development team, like you said, 12 to 18 months, you bring that thing to life but you're probably launching tons of other SKUs. I mean, how do you get traction? How do you get them ranked? How do you get reviews? Do you guys have a product launch strategy for every SKU, or do you kind of have to pick and choose which ones you're really driving, reviews and traffic to?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it is a pick and choose battle, which is we've got to get better at that, at having a one-to-one parity, so to speak. And so like for example, there's the 80-20 rule, and so we're not quite meeting that metric on the 80-20 rule, which means we have a little bit too long of a tail. And so there's an easy process of like just start retiring things in bulk and kind of just like clean things up. But then the other thing and this is very different than your business and a lot of businesses that makes it very difficult is the fact that, and even on the level of NetSuite and matrix planning and this stuff, it's not same but for color, same but for size in our case. Like, for example, a very popular window treatment program has 18 to 22 variations in window treatment size and maybe 4 to 6 colors. So you're looking at 150 SKUs, of which within there's an 80-20 rule that the everyday piece that's just the glance sells, 30% of the sales. But then all the way down the tail to this piece that's maybe $60 wholesale, it doesn't sell nearly as many as the $10 one. But when it does sell, you've got a super happy buyer. So it all lives within an ecosystem of relatable products, but yet from a matrix standpoint, it is not the same but for size. So there's that added complexity, but then you don't abandon that, because then there's this client stickiness around the fact that we're the only game doing that. So then people love it. And it's this whole battle, Luke, around, and I love the fact that I'm even having this conversation from the standpoint that this is the kind of thing that makes me excited to run a business another decade or two. Because okay, while I see that challenge, and I see it's a tough challenge, it's a big mountain to climb. If we climb that mountain, say on Home Depot with window treatment, we totally have first mover advantage, right?
Yep.
And so we just take our data from like what we know traditionally works, but apply it to e-com as far as what the SKUs are, and then figure out the marketing and branding side on the e-com ecosystem. So I don't even think I answered your question.
Well, you know what? I actually think, though, through that answer that, I do have a little more clarity, because, it's a window treatment. Let's call that, the XYZ window blind. You have 150 variations because you got different colors and sizes, but it still is, one product, with different colors and sizes. So, so you could still do a lot of marketing and branding around that one key product that is in these different sizes and colors. So I guess it's not that, it still is a mountain, but it's not, Mount Everest of 3,000, because, you still could, we could talk about it offline, but there's still a lot of marketing and branding and, and names, depending on how you're calling the SKUs and in ways where the consumer can kind of identify that that's the one I want. Okay, here's the sizes that I need. But I guess, the inventory turn, that's a whole separate issue. I guess that's going to be a challenge for all textile companies, right? You guys, trying to turn inventory at a fast enough rate with all these different sizes and colors, you got to carry, massive quantities of that. And coming from India, I think lead times are, I think it's like 5 or 6 weeks on the water, right? Instead of like 3 from China.
Yeah, correct. And not only that, in textiles, what you lose in like the volume and pricing play at not dealing with China, you pick up in quality and like a very different kind of level of like thought that plays to a buyer in America and Europe that really prefers that. But what I was going to say is there's only, like, within the 3,000 SKUs, it's about 55 or 60 product families total. So it's not like it's, and we've learned that too, by the way. We've learned, don't launch a Christmas pillow. That needs to be living in a family that maybe has 15 or 18 products that are relatable. And then, yes, the one-off might be kind of cool, but it's not worth the heavy lifting, right? So
makes sense.
Yeah. So kind of, it's not, to your point, it's not as crazy as it sounds, but it is still crazy from the standpoint of, and it's definitely not the issue of you can pick one SKU and really make that rock. If that pillow is a $14 wholesale, you're going to have to work really hard to make that like relevant to the P&L. Like, you know what I mean?
I was going to ask that. What's your average order value? But I guess it's going to depend because you're probably shipping out a lot of larger orders. Is there a way to give an answer to that question, or is that a difficult one just because of the business?
The average order value the volume has increased and the average order value has dropped because people are so pointillistic with drop ship and they pick but this does get into the issue that everyone needs to pay attention to of like the content management side to make sure it's easy. I was just listening to a channel advisor webinar about this week. It was really good. You know, like you need to really make sure that it's easier for people to buy from you instead of harder. And so like, but at the same time, you can water yourself down so much that you're not really offering like the compelling value that people actually are bothering to search for, you know? So you kind of have to be careful there. And so that's where we try to, that's the kind of the journey we're on in terms of, look, people are going to, the long tail in e-com is the fact that, well, no, maybe this is not Wayfair's best-selling like Christmas pillow, but for the buyer that knows our brand, they love it. So the point is that buyer is not statistically located in a way that you can like easily blanket it. That buyer is a settled, married, traditional lady that is scattered throughout the United States in small towns and suburbia and traditional places. So it's like, once you get to that level, while it's very niche and long tail from like a macro Amazon perspective, it can be really lucrative if you figure out the formula. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And it's going to continue to change, right, over the next couple of years with your business, you know, as more of it transitions that direction.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So no, it is tricky though. So we're definitely on this path of like, how do we make more stickiness with relatableness to where people say, you know, I bought that last year, or I bought it 2 weeks ago, or I bought it yesterday and I love it, and now I want to get more of it. You know, how do we? That's a whole discussion we could have.
I mean, yeah, that's what I love about this podcast is, you know, we could be talking about that all day long, but I want to make sure we have time to talk about, you know, what seems like a huge hill you've overcome and a huge challenge and something so interesting that you guys had to, you know, come out the other end from a fire. I'd love to hear how that happened and how you guys, you know, have come out the other end even stronger.
Yeah. So we were gearing up for, that was in October of 2016, and it was our first year. Not our first year with Wayfair or like a frontal e-com strategy, but it was our first year we were really hitting our stride like that season. And so everyone was buzzing. The economy was growing. We were excited. You know, everything was above plan. And I was feeling pretty good. What happened was we had just decided to overhaul, kind of upgrade our corporate offices, which were attached. And we added a really big, really nice showroom for like national buyers to fly in. So we would fly in buyers from Wayfair and Birch Lane and Hayneedle, and like, you know, like the idea was bring them here to a really nice showroom and like really cater to them instead of like have a 30-minute meeting and don't kind of really get. So that build out, and then we made some other changes, and it was just a really simple mistake that someone made, and it was a real honest mistake, staining a piece of wood, and it spontaneously combusted after we closed the building.
Wow. You really just,
yeah.
So they put a stain on a piece of wood, you know, to make it look better or smoother or whatever it was. And it just, something must have started it though.
It's hard to believe, but we had everything on video surveillance. So it was all recorded.
Oh, wow.
So, so that was a big bummer because, you know, we had literally were putting the finishing touches on our brand new showcase showroom. And there was like I said, a simple, innocent mistake, you know, and it wasn't not to fault, you know what I mean? So, but that's what happened. And so, yeah, here I was, out having sushi with some close friends of mine, and one of my fellow like economic development kind of people here, locally. He's a city administrator for one of the cities locally, and we're good friends. And I got a call, and they said, "Hey, Ken, your building's on fire." And I'm sitting here having sushi, and I go, "What?"
Oh,
you know,
man.
By the time I got over there, literally the building was 1900 degrees Fahrenheit.
How big was the building?
That at the time was 36,000 square feet plus the new 3,000 square foot showroom. So it was like 39,000 square feet.
And all of your inventory was in there, right? And it did that all?
Yeah. Well, here's the joke, because it was drop ship high volume season. all of our best-selling inventory was in that warehouse, and all the other inventory was in the one that didn't burn down.
You had a second one at the time. So
so we still have 2 warehouses. So the second one, which is 20 feet away, did not burn down. So and we had literally just set up a brand new drop shipping logistics like station, like whole matrix to like better handle Wayfair and Hayneedle. You know, we were just figuring all that out. And so all new equipment, all new showroom, all new inventory, massive inventory, all-time high of inventory. And so literally, though, we started in the parking lot with the building still in flames behind us. And we started triaging, you know, what are we going to do? And so we had an all-hands meeting the next morning at 7:30. And I said, listen, we're down, but we're not out. It's a building, it's inventory, it's not us. There's a difference. So we're going to get past this thing and we're going to be bigger than ever. And also, we're going to rise from the ashes because now this is our chance to really pivot some legacy systems and planning to e-com where we couldn't do it before from the ground up.
I love that. So you really just, you sounds like you really brought your leadership and were inspirational and painted a picture, because I think at that time there can be, everybody's asking, probably thinking about their jobs and they're thinking the worst case scenario. And then just as a leader of the company, you stepped up and had to paint the picture, and kind of like a football coach, maybe, you know, when you're down at halftime and had to give them that speech and give them that vision.
It was, and it was tough, man. It was really tough because the other thing is, all of our records are in the cloud. Everything's totally up to date. Our depreciation schedule, our asset schedule, our accounts receivable, you know, everything's on NetSuite. And then everything else is in box.com, which is our mass storage repository for all product development, all pictures of samples, all CAD work, all workflow.
Oh, good on you.
We were already on Smartsheet for all our Gantt planning, you know, your process and like workflow planning and all that. So like literally everything was in the cloud. So literally we knew exactly where we were. But yeah, people have it on. And the other thing I'll tell you, Luke, it was a real, like this is the thing people don't think about. Like our direct competitors at wholesale that are selling to traditional retailers, not e-com, but they were going around saying, well, you know, VHC burned down. And they're not filling in the blank and going, but you know, they're rebuilding. Like they just leave that hanging and the buyer goes, oh, well, that means they're gone.
Yeah. They're kicking you while you're down.
Yeah. And so that was really rough. Like, but you know, and you know, one of your questions was, did you think about this, like, you know, driving off into the sunset? And no, I mean, we had really, really, really good insurance. And so the checks they cut were pretty massive. I'll be real honest with you.
Oh, that's awesome. And how quick did you get those checks, and how quick were you shipping again?
Yeah. So, we started shipping 10 days later. We completely retrofitted our small warehouse to be the new distribution center. And then we lined up, all the containers were coming in fast and heavy. So we just had to leave them sitting on the parking lot and like ship from the container to drop ship.
I can just visualize that. That's funny.
Oh my God. Imagine 150 containers and a shell of a building that looked like a nuclear bomb went off.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so we did that. And then we literally that night, we relocated to the Chamber of Commerce for 2 days. And then we opened Monday morning, all systems go. Believe it or not, 96 hours later, we opened our doors, fully operational with NetSuite and everything working from an abandoned Votech campus that's like 18,000 square feet.
You're almost like a NetSuite commercial, you know. That's like it's half the, you know, it is a great, listen, it's a nice selling point to have everything in the cloud, and they're one of the only organic ERPs that's in the cloud. You know, a lot of them are in the cloud, but they're not really made for the cloud. And
correct.
And wow, what a story, how you guys turned that around that quick. You must have a great team behind you, you know, and a lot of leaders on the team to help you with that. Well,
it took a lot of grit because, you know, I mean, basically you're coming to work, and what are you coming to work for? So we did start like planning from there. I'll tell you, one of the things I did was like, I made a decision literally that day. Okay, I now have 3 jobs. My first job is to rebuild VHC, the brand, the company. My second job is to get on the phone and start rebuilding the physical fulfillment center. And the third job I have is navigating successfully a massive insurance claim fire loss on multiple levels. So right from the get-go, I told the insurance company and our agency, and by the way, my advice to people that try to flip agencies to save 10 cents here and there, or whatever, we've stuck with our agent. Now we've changed carriers, but we've stuck with our agent. That you need to do that because if something big happens, you're up a creek. So I told the insurance company, because this was a major loss for them in the Midwest. Like it was on their national radar. I mean, It's a gigantic loss. So they've got the fire marshal all up in me for like, is there fraud? Is there anything going on? They've got inspectors. They've got people that are forensics experts. I mean, so I told them from the front end, I'm going to treat you like an investor. I'm going to tell you everything I know, and I'm going to be 110% transparent, and we're going to navigate this together because we're partners. So,
wow. So what is
that? Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, sorry, I got so many questions. I didn't mean to interrupt. What is, coming from this whole story, you had to, it's amazing. That's a great thought process, how you broke it down. You had to break down into those 3 quadrants. When this process is over though, looking back at it a year later, because it sounds like you guys were, shipping 10 days later and you're already making progress. And that was my first thought was you have Q4, this happens in October 2016 and you got Q4 around the corner. And like you said, you got tons of containers. So, but like looking back at it a year later, what was your main learning? What was something that, maybe for the audience, that they could pick up on or think about in their businesses?
Oh yeah. I think that, definitely under promise and over deliver would be, cause like literally you're on the phone with Wayfair and they're like, you're talking to people that are like, I like Wayfair, trust me, but we go there and visit, we know the buyers and all this stuff. Everyone's just out of college. And so they're like,
man.
So they're like, what do you mean you can't ship? And I'm like, do you want to see a video?
Yeah, that's so funny.
And they're like, they're like, it's fourth quarter. How quick can you get on board? We're like, we burned down. Like, let's just walk that back. What that means.
Yeah.
He's like, what are you gonna do about your EDI feed? And I'm like, I'm gonna tell you, I don't have one right now. Like, so you basically manage expectations and then kind of outperform. We ended up having a pretty good fourth quarter with what we did have left, just by nature of the fact that it was kind of a scramble for people that needed our product or were kind of depending on us. They kind of sucked up everything we had. But that's not, in the big picture, you wouldn't want to do it that way. My piece of advice would be have an emergency plan, and secondly, be in the cloud. That's a huge thing. And thirdly, it's not a plan, it's just advice. I made sure that I looked and acted like a leader, even if I want to go home and cry,
Yeah. And that's always great advice. You got to hide those emotions sometimes, right? Because people are kind of feeding off how you're looking and feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So you have to have chin up, even though the skies are real dark. You got to have the chin up. It's not pretty. It's Dunkirk, but we're here. So, deal with it,
Yeah.
So that was kind of I kind of feel like, Luke, I could write a book about this.
It's an amazing, yeah, you probably should. It's an amazing story and thanks for sharing. And I think those, bits of advice is good advice, because I think a lot of us, when we haven't experienced that, we have the emergency plans that you kind of have to do, for the city codes and that, so on and so forth. But, like you said, all of us, all business owners listening, should kind of rethink that and how deep we want to go on the emergency plans. And then to your point, I think most people are getting most of their stuff in the cloud. But ERP wise, I know a lot are not, and just because it's tough, there's a lot of legacy Great Plains, or Sage or Mass 100, 200 type of systems, and locally run, locally stored. So, that reason alone isn't enough to jump to a cloud system, but you kind of get that when you go to a cloud system. So that's great advice, and thanks, Ken, for sharing that story. The whole story is amazing, and thanks for giving the listeners insights into how you do things. And we could probably have 2 or 3 podcasts, one on product development, one on how you launch products, and maybe we will down the line. But this is a great start. So just want to thank you for your time today. You've really shared, a lot about your business. How can listeners get a hold of you? If they, is there a way to connect on LinkedIn, or how do you choose what's the best method to connect with you if they want to?
Yeah, I am pretty famously very low key, if that makes any sense. So I'm the dark. I'm basically not there. I'm dark. So the best way to reach me, and this is, don't laugh, but I'm a maniac for my email, and I don't mind getting email, and I read my email, and I like email. I am on some forums and eCommerce Fuel and LinkedIn and different things, and I find myself going, oh yeah, I got to check that, as opposed to I like talking to people on email. So if people want to email me, it's Kline@VHCBrands.com, and I'm happy to chat and or whatever. That's my, which I realize is really lame. So my teenage daughter would be she'd be rolling her eyes.
Yeah. Why aren't you on Instagram, Dad?
Yeah. What's your problem? That's weird. No one can find you.
Awesome. So
I don't want them to find me.
Yeah. Well, listen, I feel your pain. Sometimes we just want a quiet moment, right? And it's tough when every fire has to kind of go through us, but appreciate that. And just to repeat, so Kline@VHCBrands.com, and you have a lot of wisdom to share, Ken. So thanks for being open to that. And listen, I just want to thank you for being a guest, and also thank you, listeners, for listening to this episode of the Page One podcast, sponsored by Retail Band. Quick reminder, if you're looking for some help on your digital strategy, product launch strategy, help with Home Depot, Wayfair, or any of those accounts, reach out to me. Find me on LinkedIn or luke@retailband.com. Doing that, I'll talk about it more in a future episode, but we have a really cool STAR process where we go through your strategy, your assets, and your trust, and the reviews that are associated with your products. And we kind of help put together a tangible strategy that you can use with your internal digital team. So happy to do that. And just want to thank everybody for taking their time out, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
All right. Thanks. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Page One podcast with Luke Peters. If you like our show and want to know more, check out our other segments. Also, please help us out by leaving us a rating on iTunes. Want to learn more about our commerce? Check out www.retailband.com to get more great tips and tricks on how to accelerate your e-commerce sales with the big box retailers.